As like many other dream chasers, Australia has become a favorite destination for Nepalese immigrants since 1960s, with the arrival of the small number of retired Gurkhamen arrived after Second World War. From a Himalayan nation to land down under, in past 50 years, Nepalese population has been ever growing. It is estimated that there are over 100,000 Nepalese people living in Australia, that include many of them living in temporary visas as well. Nepalese are well regarded for their friendliness, hard work and inclusiveness. Far away from one's home, settling in a new place is always challenging, and it has been no difference to Nepalese as well. However, this population has always managed to showcase their rich inheritance of cultural, religious and traditional diversity. Amid so many changes and challenges, their traditional, cultural, religious and inclusive practice has always kept this population intact, strong and together. A small sort of Nepalese community leaders in 2014 has now harvested into an exponential growth of community engagement, that they do have their own land settling by the end of November 2019. Australian Nepalese Multicultural Center. A foundation will be laid in near future. This community will be extremely excited for this historic moment. Our thoughts are very powerful, as we always talk about how powerful your thoughts can be and how much irresponsible thinking is important in today's days and world. To take a community from point A to point B, for a progressive community, a powerful and a concise and a precise thinking can manifest into a really good outcome, as a Nepalese community has proven it today. In our second episode of Melbourne Mind Express, where we explore our thoughts and ideas, we're discussing about a dream project of Nepalese community, Australian Nepalese Multicultural Center. Today, we have got 3 elite volunteers of Nepalese community that we will be having a very interactive discussion with. We have got Dr. Chandra Pokharel, President of Australian Nepalese Multicultural Community. I've got Ranjan Vaidya, a very elite Nepalese volunteer who has worked tirelessly in the project, and I've got Rajesh Acharya here with me as well. It's great to have all 3 of you here in our today's second episode of Melbourne Mind Express. Firstly, I would like to start with Dr. Pokharel. Is this dream really coming true?
Well, I think when people, the skeptic people in 2014 or perhaps earlier wouldn't have thought that we would get this far in a period of 4 or 5 years. I think the project, when we first thought about it, there were lots of discussion about should we go public, should we have a private public venture, or should we have private venture. But then a bunch of like-minded Nepalese entrepreneur, not so much entrepreneur, Nepalese established Nepalese leaders got together in 2014, and we thought about starting a organization called now we called Australian Nepalese Multicultural Center, so we had a robust discussion about which path should we take, and ultimately we decided to take a path of a public venture where every single member who becomes a member of this organization has a equal voting right, and this is a shared vision, this is a shared project, this is a shared organization that would represent our Nepalese culture, heritage, not for the current generation only, but ultimately, like future and the subsequent generations.
What my question to you is, I'll probably go to Ranjan Vaidya. My question is this dream really coming true to a Australian Nepalese community and overall Australian people?
I would say yes, and definitely yes. And to start with, basically, when we were thinking about it back in 2013-14, people used to call me crazy to think about even raising 1.5 or 1.7 million in one day. They used to think me I was crazy. And now here we are, and especially with the able leadership of Dr. Chandra Pokharel, Rajesh, and all that. So it's happening, and it's definitely will happen. So I can't be more sure about it.
Fantastic, fantastic. And that's something that's very positive, that and it's a commendable positive attitude that the community is very aspiring towards the historical moment, and everyone is eagerly waiting. But in the meantime, as you say, that sometimes people think you're crazy of raising such a big amount of money. Behind the scene, a lot of things were done. I would like to get Rajesh's opinion on that. Financially, is this dream is coming true, or is it viable?
When we started this project in 2014, when we thought about this project in 2014, actually that was the biggest concern of the community members, and the way we projected our cash flow was we wanted to do in different phase, different stages. So the first stage was to buy a piece of land worth $350 to $500,000, and that we aim to achieve before 2019. But look at today's figure. We already bought a land worth 1.5 million. That means we are already way above our original target, and we still got that community spirit is in the growing phase. Our community is growing, and everybody in the Nepalese community wants this dream to be materialized.
Okay, Dr. Pokharel, I'll come back to you. What have you estimated the final total cost, and what have you expected from the community to be this project, not just a dream project, but it's a successful project of Nepalese?
Absolutely. Just as Rajesh has pointed out, initially we thought anything around 400,000 or 500,000 would be a good sort of project to start with. But then we've exceeded that expectation thanks to every Nepalese members who have supported us, local leaders, people who have had faith on us, as well as thought that we need something for ourselves. So they have worked really hard, including my committee members, as well as broader Nepalese community members. And we managed to sort of increase our numbers in terms of membership. That's also helped. So ultimately, going back to your point, the thing we thought would have been difficult, now we've exceeded that expectation thanks to everybody's help. But just as Ranjan has pointed out, we are absolutely certain that this project will be completed. And yes, we have paid $1.5 million for the land, and we will have another 100,000, or we will need another 100,000 for the land to settle, including our stamp duties and legal fees and other things. So overall, it will be about 1.6 million in terms of by the time we have this land in Australian Nepalese Multicultural name.
I would like to support what you there. What I would like to do is, in your estimate, what's the total final cost before we actually serve this project to the broader Australian community?
Yeah, 1.6 million. That includes stamp duty as well as legal fees and other expenses. So the total figure will be 1.6 million by the time we have land now in our NEMC's name.
Yeah, and how about the building itself?
Well, that would be, in my opinion, what we will do is, subject to council approval, we obviously have to have a plan in place, and that plan needs to go through the council, and the council have to approve it. Then there will be second round of fundraising, not only amongst or from the Nepalese community members, business entrepreneurs, but also we would be reaching out to the local, state and federal governments for grants. Yeah. And I don't know the final figure at this point in time, because that remains to be seen depending on the scale of project, the design and the approval from the council, but that's a long way up in my opinion. It's a one step at a time. Let's take one step at a time.
I would like to just add a few things on that one. Basically, it's a very good question on what is the real estimate. When the project was first launched, we had a very broad, very detailed cash flow for the around 25 years, about 25 years. Like basically, we didn't think that it will come so soon. So basically, we had a 25 years. So in that 25 years, we had a few phases. So the first phase was, as just mentioned before, is like to have around 300 to 400,000 and buy a small plot of land or even a warehouse and to start with somewhere. And the next step was to buy a land, and another step was to actually buy a building. So we had that cash flow, but it's not on top of my head at the moment, if you remember. But it is, if I remember, it was around 5 million. If I remember correctly, it's around 5 million. That will give us the community center, one center, a land, a center, and a small temple and a stupa, and then we had a bit of a multicultural hub as well, and we had planned to have the sports ground, something like a football ground as well.
Correct.
So that was again is very ballpark figure at the time, but no idea what the price would be.
So just to summarize what you just get, a 5 million is a mammoth job for us to achieve yet, and being successful up to now, having our land getting ready to settle, raising up to $1.5 million in a short span of time. I'll come to Rajesh. How did this thing happen?
Definitely it's a community spirit. The model is a public model. So the type of institution we said is a not-for-profit organization. So not-for-profit in the sense, whatever asset we create within the institution cannot be distributed to the members. Similarly, any profit generated by the organization will be cannot be distributed to the members. So it's a community project, and everyone got equal rights. So so this model was people liked the model. People from the Nepalese community liked the model, and everybody became the life member. So there has been contributions from starting
my question to there is, since we have gone into this and in a crash way, in a very fast way, we've been able to raise such a large amount of money. What different did we do compared to, because getting a community involvement, I also understand that commitment is one thing, but raising the funds and having the money into the bank account is another. So that's something that I would like to know, that what different did we do that this model came to a very good success?
I think I might just add on to what Rajesh has highlighted. So what we did something differently, although this was already in the planning phase, that we would have a 7-day program in Melbourne, a fundraising program, and the design phase was that we'll have some sort of religious program such as Saptaha or something like that. So ultimately we decided to have Melbourne Saptaha in December of 2017. So, and leading up to that program, the previous executive team, including Ranjan, had already worked out on that concept, but then that concept had to be put into reality. So what we did was we formed a committee who would run that program, and I chaired that committee, and Rajesh was the treasurer of that committee as well. So, and then we had a whole Melbourne community involved in it. So what we did was every weekend we actually went and consulted and explained and engaged with every suburban Nepalese people who were living all around the Melbourne, and told them that this is our vision. We want you to come to this place. We are conducting this 7-day program, and support us. Not only support us, but support the ANMC, which is our organization, and the motto of this organization obviously is to build a Hindu temple, Buddhist temple, as well as building a Australian Nepalese Multicultural Center or Multicultural Center, where it would reflect not only Nepalese culture, but Nepalese culture in the context of broader Australian multiculturalism.
Okay, fantastic.
So
that's something that
I concept which we were able to sell.
So multicultural and
is mainly trying to touch base on how we actually collected money. I think as Dr. Chandra mentioned, we worked hard as a committee, especially to make the Melbourne Saptaha a very successful event, and the credit goes to the entire Melbourne Nepalese community. And the most important thing we did, what we experienced in the past is people in the community, they come in the public place and sometimes they just plays, but the challenge we used to face is the collection side. But the good thing we did with this one is we got everyone to sign the direct debit arrangement, and also made it compulsory that those who wants to become the life member of ANMC, they had to deposit at least 20% on the spot. So it was like a contractual arrangement right from the day one, and that became quite successful.
Okay, so fantastic. That's something that, because this could be a good lesson for other community and other projects that people would like to run in terms of collecting the funds that someone has committed. So obviously direct debit and the commitment and the contract kind of things for their involvement, which is fantastic. And obviously that would have added a greater value in terms of collecting such a whole amount of money in a short span of time.
Yes, Sudeep, I just want to add one thing. In fact, the answer you're looking for maybe, what made such a big difference is the teamwork. I would say the teamwork is the word, and yeah, I think
Yes.
is like as Dr. Chandra Pokharel has mentioned, the previous team has actually worked out the plan, and the new executive team actually executed it so well, and everyone was part of it. And then in that teamwork, it's not only about the two executive team, but entire community come together. So team as a whole community was I think that was the main.
Okay.
I would like to share a very important information that in fact we had a committee of 501 people.
Absolutely.
So it was a
So
big community.
It's a 501.
501
Yes.
Okay.
members
That
were
was-
part of that committee.
That conducted the Melbourne Saptah.
I will come down to that number 501. I will raise some questions around that area. But now let's get into another aspect of this whole project, Australian Nepalese Multicultural Center. I mean, in terms of the cultural values, what does it mean to a Nepalese community? Because it does hold a lot of Nepalese sentiment. And what does this mean to broader Australian multicultural society? I would like to start from Ranjan there.
Okay, so when you say cultural, is basically it provides a venue. If we talk about ANMC alone, it provides a venue to deliver the projects, programs, and all that. If you know, this Nepalese community in Melbourne or Victoria has been practicing the cultural events, or preserving the cultures and all that. They have been already doing in a very much scattered way. What happens with the ANMC is like it will provide a venue, a platform where people can actually do the things more efficiently, more effectively, and in more continuous term. So that's one for Nepalese. And then, as we've been discussing, the Hindu temple and the Buddha temple has been there from the day one. And also, sorry, I forgot about the Janaki temple was there from the day one. So there are other things that will be coming later. So it's not only about the faith and religion, but there will be other things as well, like many Nepalese cultures. That will be the venue you can go and celebrate these things. So I'll promote this thing and preserve them. For other mainstream community, what happens for them is like this is a place where they can use it, they can rent it, they can, what do you call that? You could also rent it. They can hire. They can hire the place and they can practice their own culture. So when they come into there, they can see Nepalese cultures and all that, and they can actually learn from that as well. So for them, it's a place where they can learn about the Nepalese culture. So that is one of the strings in the multi-fabric.
If I summarize that, it will showcase the Nepalese tradition and culture here in Australia.
Yeah.
Whereas in the meantime, it will give a broader Australian community a chance to see and incorporate the Nepalese culture here in Australian perspective. Is that?
So
I would also like to add that that will be a platform to teach our culture, our tradition, and our language to our next generation.
Okay, great. Yeah, that's something really important thing is getting a connection to your culture and your tradition is very important while we're growing up in a very advanced and a multicultural Australian lifestyle. We can only be multicultural if we keep our tradition and culture alive. And
so the fundamentally you have platform, you have celebrations of various cultural and religious activities that would be then enjoyed and there will be the participation by Nepalese community, and this multicultural center as well as temple and Gumba will create a bridge between Nepalese diaspora and the rest of the Australian community. So this is the kind of concept that we're working on. Okay. So I'm sure in years to come, when we reflect back ourselves, we would know that I think we had planned it well, and our current generation, the subsequent generation will realize of the fact that this was a great idea.
And no doubt about that, the generation will witness the hard work done by, and the legacy that they can enjoy would be something tremendous. But in the meantime, are we taking this on our own? or is the local government initiatives or involvement is in this mega project?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, we've had multiple discussions with local, state, and federal channels or government officials. What I understand from multiple discussions is that unless we have a tangible asset, such as a land that's in our name, and we put forward a proposal of a construction of a building or a structure, the funding is limited. So in order to get this, what they call infrastructure grant, which can be substantial, which can be in millions of dollars, as long as we are able to match. If they're going to give us $1 million, we got to put forward $1 million from ourselves. So as long as we can match that, there's multi-million dollars, millions of dollars we can get it in terms of infrastructure grant. However, before you have this tangible asset in our name, it's very difficult to get a grant, because they can give you a grant for 5,000, 2,000, 3,000 for small activities, but it really doesn't make a difference.
So does that mean that having this land in the name of Multicultural Community Center will open a door
Absolutely.
for a huge potential of we knocking the door of the local government and get their involvement as a stakeholder in this community center?
Absolutely,
True.
absolutely.
I think that's. I think Dr. Chandra mentioned more about the grant, but I can see the more potential to engage in the local government more than just the grant. The local government will be benefited from the Nepalese Community Center being there, because when there is community center, many new migrants, many Nepalese settlers would like to settle in that area. That will boost the local economy. The retail sector will be benefited.
So
the construction sector will be benefited. So
So
again, from the government point of view,
does that mean is Diggers Rest going to be can be another Nepalese hub, potential Nepalese hub in Melbourne?
Well, it's something I think we should work on it, but doesn't mean we should stop there, right? Australian Nepalese Multicultural Center should expand and should have every corner of Melbourne, maybe at least 3 different localities in the next 5 years. That's what we should aim for, right? This will remain a hub in the sense that we'll try to sort of create this as a mini Nepal, because it's got the land, we've got 15 acres, we can do a lot of things there. Whereas in other corridors, I think we should also think of having, I guess, a satellite center or concept of Australian Nepalese Multicultural Center in those locations, so that people in that area also can enjoy.
This is something very interesting. So what we now have got in thought is Diggers Rest is not the final destination. No. It is just the beginning, and it can be a sprouts of another venue around Victoria, or maybe in the broader aspects as well. But will that gonna put a lot of pressure in the team, that which we are just beginning and we're halfway through? What pressure the team will bear with this plan ahead?
Well, I think first of all, we were completely focused on this project. We have to complete this project, we have to settle the land, and then we'll have a business plan. What does that mean is we'll have a plan in place where it becomes operational. So once the center becomes operational, it will start generating earnings, such as letting the place out for religious activities, or people would come and worship and throw some money or donate some money in the donation box, or as we liaise with local leaders, government officials, or even other charitable organizations. Once they see what we're doing, there will be a flood of gates sort of open, and we'll start sort of like having this project run smoothly. As that happens, then we would have to start thinking elsewhere.
Okay.
Also, getting back to the original question of engagement of local governments, I think it is very important to mention that even at the infancy stage of this whole idea, we did go and speak to the local councils, like other councils, and we did get a lot of input from them to actually develop our plan. So, and then also currently what's happening is like as part of this ANMC, movement, every community is talking to their councils to say like we have got ANMC projects and all that. So recently we had a discussion with council in Knox, for example, and then they were asking the question about where is it going to be built, and when we said it is in the Diggers Rest, and we said, oh, okay. So they were kind of thinking, okay, why don't you do a small one here as well, kind of. So as you mentioned, it is quite possible because this idea has already gone out there. So people are talking to their councils, and it might as well go global.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that we just have to start somewhere. And
we totally have got a opinion around a subsided project coming where the primary project is still in the process progressing.
Yeah.
But if that's what the community is asking for, and if that's what the next phase is going to be, then obviously a bigger team of 501 people will have opinion there, and they will decide more. But what the Nepalese community want to see and what the Nepalese community wants to do, it's something that obviously the team has understood as. And same thing, I would like to get back to Dr. Pokharel as what is the community sentiment about this?
Well, I think the community is obviously kind of excited, as well as they're on board. Look, understandably, if you live in, say, for example, far east of Melbourne, a project that's being started in Diggers Rest may not be as exciting for them. But as responsible leaders and responsible members of the community, we have a duty of explaining to them that, look, hey, this is the first project we're starting. ANMC was incepted in 2014. We've gone this far. We're trying to establish something. So once we have this in place, then we will look for other places. So that will be elsewhere. But I think it needs to be made clear that the project scale will be different, in my opinion. I mean, the future leaders and future committees may have different view on it. However, the way I look at it is that the scale of the project will be different. It will be much smaller, much more targeted, and specific for that location.
Now, I will find a time to discuss more in detail about that particular aspects of the community engagement. But in the meantime, I will come down to Rajesh, that you mentioned that this committee is 501 people. It's a pretty big community to run itself as well. The committee itself is a huge committee. Now,
I'm talking about that event committee.
Yeah, so event committee. Total running committee members is 500.
No. So let me correct that. When we conducted that Melbourne Saptah for 7 days, we had a committee of 501 people. At the moment that program got concluded on I think it was 24th of December, that committee got dissolved.
Yeah. Okay.
So since all the activities have been run by the executive committee of 17 members,
And exactly, this is something that what I would like to bring, I would like to find out a little bit more about is the marketing and the social engagement. Because I understand this is a very, very big project. What are we doing about the social engagement and marketing? Are we doing it effectively, or is there a room for improvement, and can it be done into a different scale?
Well, I guess there is room for improvement. Obviously, we got to work out a detailed marketing strategy, our social media strategy, covering different parts. But in terms of social engagement, if we talk about Nepalese community, I think this project is quite popular now. Most of the Nepalese people living in Victoria knows about ANMC's project, and the fact that already 1,100 members have become the live member of this project. So it's quite popular, but we need to conduct more programs to make it more engaging, and we need to have a very robust social media strategy so that people feel like we have been doing something on an ongoing basis.
So is there any exciting marketing or any social engagement plans coming up that we can look forward to, or has the committee planned something to, because there is a land settlement, it's a historic moment coming forward. Are we doing anything that we can sort of put it to a wider community, because it probably is the time to rejoice? So do we have any sort of plans?
Well, currently our focus is to raise the deficit. We have roughly about 1.3 million once we realize the money that's been placed. So then there's still a shortfall of about $300,000. So our priority remains to raise those $300,000. So what we're doing is we've had a couple of engagement programs. One was run in East, the other one was run in West, and there are 3 or 4 in the pipeline which are being being designed and planned. One would be in Craigieburn area, then one would be in central Melbourne area, so in a Coburg, Glenway area. The other one would be in west in Hoppers Crossing area. Then we're also liaising with the community members in Doreen, Mernda, that area. So we have at least 4 upcoming engagement. We like to obviously expand that so that
when
the funds will be.
when
will
Dr.
be
Pokharel
collected,
said
yeah.
something there, I would like to add something over there and want to ask some questions. There's a felt that's been filled is a large number of younger community members has not been included, or they have been bypassed in a way that there is not a huge engagement of that particular group of people, a young particular group of people, or the group of people that were possibly going to inherit this legacy later on.
Yeah.
Have we done anything about getting them included?
Well, that's a very good question, right?
Yeah.
But as we understand the human psychology and the feelings, the first generation migrants, when we first came, this wasn't our priority, right? As we grew up, as we settled, we thought we need something here in Melbourne for us as well as for the subsequent generation. So I think in that context, the youngsters, although we would obviously love to have them on board, but the reality is that they are trying to sort of get a degree, have residence in Australia, settle in Australia, buy a house. So their focus is a little bit different. So trying to engage them is a huge challenge. I think we'll all have to work towards it.
Yeah, that's correct. As Dr. Chandra mentioned, one of the objectives of ANMC is to engage those youngsters. Once we got the community center, we have the community center ready. Then community center becomes the place of assembly for people of different age groups. So young people will meet there, and people with common interest will meet there. They start talking about business. They start talking about the culture. They start learning the language. They start talking about the business ideas. New migrant will come, and with that place will be the platform for getting the information. So that's I guess the whole objective of having community center is to engage those which you said is neglected kind of. It's not negative. Everyone is welcome.
Though it has been a brief meeting, and though it has been a brief interactive session, the whole idea is to bring out a very aspiring community is driving towards a next milestone and setting up their own community center in Australia, and especially with the theme of being multicultural and trying to showcase their tradition, their culture, and the rich inheritance of the Nepalese culture. No doubt that it has got hundreds and thousands of old cultures, tradition, food, costumes. There's many things that it can obviously bring into an Australian multiculturalism.
Yeah, and we Nepalese speak more than 123 languages.
And that's again very exciting. So obviously Australia would be very excited to see this historical moment come true. And obviously with all the hard works done by the team, we will look forward for this historic day. And we obviously will cover up the settlement of the land part, and then we will look forward and we'll put our effort towards the successful conclusion of the whole event and in the project coming after. But before we wrap up the program, I would like to, the last word from the president to the community and to the wider Australian community about the project itself. And obviously it's a tough job, it's a tough volunteership that everyone has taken. So obviously this would be a chance for you to reach out to most of the people, and if there is anything that you would like to say and expect from the community. Yeah,
look, first of all, I'm hugely honored to be leading ANMC. It is really true honor that's people have trusted on me, and obviously the team I work with are fantastic. They're dedicated, they're committed, they work really hard. As you can appreciate, this is a voluntary organization or voluntary time we're all putting in. Sometimes things don't go according to the plan, but then we always reflect ourselves and then sort of go forward. So in this context, look, the people who are going to listen to this or are in Melbourne and listening this program, please do understand that we have a land almost in our hand. In the next month or two, we'll settle this land, which is worth about 1.5 million, and on top of that, we need another 100,000 for a settlement. In this regards, if you haven't become a member of ANMC, this is a golden opportunity. At the same time, if you want to donate or contribute, you're welcome to do so. it's because this is a historic moment for every one of us who live in Melbourne and Victoria. That the dream that we had dreamt some years ago is now coming into reality. And thanks to my previous team, my predecessors such as founding president Ranjan Vaidya, previous committee members, and a whole Nepalese community, as well as the members who have worked hard to make this ANMC successful and bring our dream come true.
Okay.
So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Pokharel. Obviously, a mega project is about to come to a mid-stage where the lands are going to be settled very soon. It will be a historic moment for a Nepalese community. And from the platform of Melbourne Mind Express, where we explore our ideas and thoughts, obviously a small idea has aspired today into an exponential growth where Nepalese community will be very excited to see their own community centre, a multicultural community centre where they can showcase their rich inheritance of cultural tradition here in Australia, and a broader Australian community will be able to see, witness the rich inheritance of Nepalese cultural society and the community, and perhaps we can add value into this multicultural community. We would like to wish best of luck, and luck from the bottom of our heart, to the entire team of Australian Nepalese Multicultural Center. Melbourne Mind Express and the team will be always on board to help the team, and we would like to request all the members, community members, volunteers and wide Australian community to open their arms, roll their sleeves and help this noble cause of setting up a Australian Nepalese Multicultural Center. Thank you again, and we'll be back with you in our third episode soon. Till then, see you. I'm your host, Sudeep Kumar Maske, with Sabingdan Thapa and Ravi Dungana on camera. Thank you.